Leap of Fate podcast fans. Welcome to this week's episode with yours truly, Randy Silver. As a friendly reminder, the Leap of Fate is around overcoming adversity, challenges in your daily lives. That could be finances, daily struggles, anything that you deal with. We here at the Leap of Fate want to make sure that you understand that you can overcome your issues, whatever it may be. Before we get into this week's guest, which is Miss Karen Lebsanft, I wanted to just say, as I always do, thank you so much to everybody out there listening. You all are great. You guys are the best listeners out there. The feedback you give me on all the marketing material, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all of it. Thank you so much. If you're still listening on Apple, Spotify, thank you so much. Please do try to go over to YouTube. I spend a lot of hours editing, putting pictures in, videos in, content in. So there's video to go with the audio, not just the interviews. There's a lot there. So thank you so much. And Karen is going to give me some stuff for this week as well. So who's Karen? Why do I have Karen on this week? No, it's not that crazy Karen that you guys hear in the news. No, she's awesome. I promise you that. Karen is someone that I found through the group Potted. Again, finding a guest, finding people. She is the founding director and CEO of Kurrajong Kitchen. She's actually based in Australia. She's started that in 1993, which was my birth year. So I'm not trying to date her, but like cool to see she's as old as her company as I am. She's also done so much more. She's volunteers in multiple experiences, camp mentor programs. She's a coach, mentor. She's a speaker. So she is a woman who's excelled in not just her personal life and business. And one of the things I wanted to bring her on to talk about is, you always hear about, women overcoming adversity in the business place. How do you get yourself to a CEO level? How do we move up in the business world? So I think Karen will be able to provide a lot of that good information for us and how that you can get yourself to the next level and overcome adversity you may feel like is happening to you, regardless of your skin tone, your color, your sexual orientation, like that. I'm sure she has some good stories to share. So with that being said, Karen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Randy. It's so nice to be here. It's so nice to be, and I think you are my first podcast into America, so we've got a
awesome.
Common absolutely. So it's really exciting as well. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. So was that a pretty good synopsis to kind of give everybody an overview of what we'll speak about today?
Absolutely. It sounds great. And I think as we go through into my story is without a doubt, like many, people will assimilate to, certain parts of my story, and everybody has a story. And I think connecting with others who have been through something similar to you in parts of your life, especially here we're talking to millennials, and as you indicated, look, I am a child of the 60s, okay? So I've had an interesting, almost an amazing, an extraordinary life, and not through necessarily something that I've always done, but where a path took me and I chose which fork in the road to take at the time. Back then, if you think about this, I was brought up in a world of no internet, I was brought up in newspapers and talking to your neighbour and that sort of communication. So we didn't have what I talk about these days, the phone in the hand, where every question you have has an answer by the press of a button, on Google. What I think my opportunity is, what we're doing here today, is to bring that information you receive and put some life experience around it. And this is how it was actually dealt for me. So definitely always driven, desire to succeed. In saying that, I was on the debating team as, in school, and I wasn't the school captain or the total top leader, but I was always up there trying to strive to be better. So, the Citizenship Award, yes, I remember those sorts of things, but I'm outcome focused, definitely agree with that. And I'm a high achiever. So I wanted to, which is what you're talking to, this podcast is talking to, people who want to succeed, who want to take that next step and understand how to do it. Definitely a mindset. You can't always have that mindset, though, without a total support team around as well.
How did you turn that into becoming a CEO and starting your own company?
Absolutely. So in 1993, which is when this company started, my husband and I were having a restaurant in hospitality. So I'd come out of a different industry and was in hospitality. And we were serving a lavash flatbread, which is what we make on our cheese
Sounds so
platters.
good.
Yes, in the restaurant. Now, we didn't invent lavash. It's known worldwide by chefs, okay? But what we did do, we brought it to the Australian consumer. And in 1993, the only version of flatbread Australia knew was lavash, the soft version roll-up for your lunch, where you'd have a roll-up version of taco and soft taco and roll-up and actually then, enjoy that. So how that started, we were serving it in the restaurant, and back in Australia then people entertained with a product called Arnott's, is a well-known brand, Arnott's Jats cracker, which was a salty cracker they'd put on their cheese platters, and they aspired to a black box of an imported product called Carr's water crackers. And we found a market in between, and how we did that was the guests in the restaurant would take home the product, and so it started one step, little step at a time. Started and would take home that product. We started baking 30 packets a week and then moved on to we now bake 756,000 pieces a day.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. And for me, the important thing was sticking to why we're actually doing that, because a product is a product, but it's not. It's about what the end user's doing with that and the experience that they're looking at to do. So that became about our value set. What do we want this consumer to do and what experience? So with a packet and a packet only on a shelf, we had to try and give the consumer the experience of they would have had in the restaurant that time.
So let me ask you this question. When you started growing from 30 packets a day to 100 to 1,000, 100,000, how did you find going from it's probably like your kitchen in your home to now a manufacturing kitchen to multiple? Did someone teach you that, or was it like you learned, you made fails on the way and you learned, okay, this is what we need to do moving forward?
There's always fails, Randy, and learning. There's always learning and fails. There's always fails. And success, success is not this. It doesn't go like that. It goes round and round and up and down, 2 steps forward.
I wish you guys could see her. Hopefully watching YouTube, she's using her hand.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah, exactly. If I think about our first learnings one of our first learnings, so in the early days, we actually decided when we started to get some thinking and you get some ideas about what this idea looks like and how you want to take it, we decided to outsource some of our manufacturing. So we built a plant, a small factory, a small kitchen, in fact, to service the domestic retail market, and we were outsourcing on the other side of the country, on the other side of Australia, for that company to make our product under instruction from us, to make our product to go into an export market. What happened with that was a massive fail in respect that whilst we did a lot of teachings for them, the palette of product would turn up and one piece would be burnt around the edges, one piece would be undercooked, one piece overcooked. And what we paid for was a pallet load of lavash flatbread, and we would sit there at the end of service each night in an unmanned warehouse and unpack every packet and repack, and we would end up with a saleable 1/3 of a pallet.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. But we were staying true to ourselves because we couldn't afford to have that brand damaged, even in the early days, because we wouldn't be here 28 years later with a brand if we didn't take there's hard lessons. You don't have any money at all. If I take a further step back just for a second, one of our defining moments was in 1993 we started. So we started to do this. By 1997, we just didn't know what we were doing. We're still running a function centre. We didn't have the restaurant. We were making lavash part-time. We were doing outside catering, and we had just got married and was trying to start a family. So there was such a juggle of what to do. We spent $3,500 Australian dollars at the time, which was a massive investment into there. And we took a stand at a big trade show called Australian Fine Food, and a Coles supermarket manager came along and he said, I love your product, your packaging won't work. And he gave us a listing in a Coles, big supermarket chain in Australia, and it's actually why the brand sits in Australian pantries today is because of that listing. So we were about to throw it all in, but we had to make the decision. So it is about big decisions. Why are you making the decision? You know, it is often easy to go, oh, forget it. But sometimes the extra investment will take you on a different path.
You know, go that extra farther and they're like, oh my God, I don't think it's going to happen. But whenever you think it's not going to happen, it's almost when it always happens. And if for whatever reason why, it's fate showing you that that extra hard work will pay off.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to be brave to take that leap though, you know, as well. Yep. I'm sure that comes through. And sometimes, and it's, I talk about the gut feeling. If there's a gut feeling that, you know, that there's something that's just holding you back from getting out, you know, that makes you go that way, take that leap. It's so worthwhile. Probably our next leap of faith came along when, so we're about 6 years on the shelf in the supermarket. We've got our listings. We're now in the 2 major supermarket chains in Australia. And I mentioned before the brand name Arnott's, and Arnott's you would know from Tim Tams, I'm sure. Tim Tams is an Australian chocolate biscuit that everybody loves, absolutely adores. Well, you know, respected brand. They decided they would come out with a range that included lavash, which we had really started to teach the Australian consumer what lavash was and how to use it. So we're a family business, 2 of us only, putting our heart, soul, dollars, house, everything into this business. 6 years in, and they come out with this brand. They priced it higher. They put it, which is really taking the high ground, and they came out as part of the range. They spelt it a little bit differently. You might actually ask also too about, you know, in lavash we couldn't IP it, so we, you know, claim the intellectual property on it because lavash is a generic name, so as biscuit would be, so we couldn't do that. So we had to work around that. So they came out with a different spelling, priced it higher, and honestly, we thought we're dead in the water. We can't fight this massive giant of a company. How are we going to do this? What are we going to do? So it was, again, after we got over the fear factor and, you know, sort of picked ourselves off the ground and thinking that we're going to lose everything and all our investment, we then realised what could we do. So we put a tiny note inside every packet and we said to the consumer, this is a David and Goliath battle. We need you to tell your friends we're still a young Australian manufacturing company, biscuit branded company, and we need you to go and share. And just by thinking outside the square and not being prepared to walk away, because we could have folded very easily, the biscuit buyer actually told us we outsold the Arnott's, the big major, 2-1, and we stayed on the shelf and their range was discontinued.
Wow.
It is such a great story.
I love it.
Oh, I love it. I love telling that story, Randy, because it gives people, you know, there are always, there's always hurdles to overcome in business as you grow. Staff, people, product, marketing, partnerships, etc. The big guy coming to take your market that you've grown, you know, and you can do it. Without a doubt, you can do it.
And I think you touched on a really good point there. Like, that story is so cool of, like, just giving a human touch. People want to buy from a company that they believe in, they trust the brand, they love, versus maybe this generic. So as you started to scale, how did you learn to become the CEO? How did you learn, hey, this is where the marketing money goes. This is how I have to hire someone. This is HR. We have a lot of people who come on the show who are entrepreneurs, and they're very young entrepreneurs. They maybe have 1 employee. So as they start to scale, they'd be really interested to hear, how did you learn the ropes of becoming now a full CEO, not just your own employee?
Great question. I think, look, I had come from working in the Teachers Credit Union, Teachers Mutual Bank. At the time, I worked under a structure of, you know, this was a supervisor and this was the general manager, etc. So we started to put an organisation chart in, you know, what did we want to do? Because when you first start, you are doing everything. You are cleaner, packer, you know, baker. I've been in all those roles in our business, and I had to, at the time, manage my day, and I started a young family at the same time when this was, you know, as we started to get some, you know, legs, as I call it, you know, and get some traction. And my time poor is the biggest thing I think happened. So my job was, you know, Monday morning might have been doing something allocated for HR or my team, and I might have only had a team of 2 back then, early 1, 2. But as my time grew, I had to decide, what did I really want this company? And I believe it's about looking at vision and what do I want to achieve in 5 years or 10? What do I want to actually now say in 5 years about this brand or this company? What does it look like? How do I want it to grow? And then starting to put into an organisation chart what roles you want to have in the business. So you have a marketing department, a sales department, an IT department, a distribution. What does this look like in 5 years? And you start to set up and plan for those tasks, create the jobs, and eventually create a role, because you're growing and you don't have time and you need to employ for that. So it's giving up little bits at a time, and ultimately give up the things that you're not good at. There is, because we all have strengths we bring to our business. Yep. And I actually think that's a really interesting thing, because in our business, I am CEO and my husband is COO. So he's Chief Operating Officer, because he loves the manufacturing and the process and the systems and the digging back down and this, put this in and do that and turn that and this gives you that, which is very trade-based to some degree. Yep. With hands, tools, etc. I like and my strength is in vision and where are we going to go and what steps are we going to get there. What we've always done, though, Randy, the only way I believe you become successful, and I always talk about my success is not me, my success is the team I've put around me, and whether that's an internal team or an external team, it's the key to my success. Ultimately, also, I do come from old school, because we didn't grow a business on the back of YouTube or Google or social media, because we didn't have those things. We grew it on good old-fashioned relationships. So growing a business and looking at your strengths, we always went in with, if I didn't know all the information as CEO, I might have been the leader, but I had other people to manage and to do the tasks that they were good at. And I believe the success of somebody in a CEO role is by a collaborative and developing those relationships, to then utilising the team around you and building their strengths. You build those people up, you just go higher as well. And the successes become, your successes become theirs, and likewise.
Yeah, and I tell my team all the time, we were talking off podcast before we started, that I'm a global sales leader as well. It's the team success. It's never my success. If we fail, it's my fault. It's not the team's fault. But when we succeed, it's the team's. And I love that. So what would you say are your maybe 3 to 5 top traits as a CEO when you're hiring someone? What are you looking for? Maybe even the grander, what are you looking for when you're trying to partner with different companies, things like that?
Absolutely. And that's, if I think about some of the journeys over the time, is we've actually, as we were growing, originally when you start as a growing business, start as a young business, you almost take on anybody who you can sell to or who will partner with you, because you're trying to get traction. And we did that in the early days. And one of those, at one point, when we identified our own value set and where we were going in the business model we wanted to take forward and what was important to us, we actually had to go to that company and say, we actually can't go forward because our business models are going in 2 different directions. So it was always going to be, it was never going to be a long term. It was sustainable only for a short term. So, look for sustainability, and that is in value sets. I will always, always, always employ for culture before I employ for skill set, because while skill set is important, very so much so in certain roles, and I really value that, but culture kills, that completely. Because if that person hasn't got the right attitude, and I can share with you that, that wasn't always the way. We need this person, or we take a person for the sake that we needed the numbers in the door. We needed the people doing that. And in the end, when you take that approach, you just have a revolving door of people coming in and out, in and out. It does nothing for the company, for the brand, for the people sitting in the desk going, oh, who's the new person to sit in the face?
Yeah, it could be more detrimental, especially if that person's a cancer to the culture and it just brings everybody down.
Oh, so true. So culture has been very important. We call ourselves, one of our values is we call ourselves the Kurrajong Kitchen family. We don't make reference to team. We call ourselves the Kurrajong Kitchen family. And that's how we treat everybody, because now, as myself as CEO and my husband and as directors of this company, is we employ roughly 35, 40 people. Our responsibility is to those 40 people to pay their rent, to pay
Yep.
their mortgages, to keep their life, to not send them backwards. And obviously, COVID was a challenge without a doubt. Um, but it is actually to focus, if you focus on the team and building the people up around you, the entire culture, brand, business, everybody wants to be part of a success. Randy, I think that's
Hmm.
on a successful team, don't you love to follow, the most successful team in, what have you just had in America? The sports that's just happened.
Oh, the football, yeah, the
Yes,
Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom
yeah,
Brady, number
yep.
7, the goat.
Everybody wants to be on that success train, and
Yeah.
I call it, actually, I make my terminology is get on or off the bus. I've worked out that the bus that I'm driving is, in fact, has a lot of people in a lot of different seats, going forward. This bus may have to change direction as growth came along, but we want the right people on the bus, and we want people to realise that as this bus takes a longer journey, this company in this case, of course, takes a longer journey, it's okay for them to get off the bus, because sometimes people don't want to go that place, and they
Hmm.
keep staying on, but they're not happy. And our role is to keep this family unit together. And we all know not all family units stay together and play
Yep.
together, so it's about the balance between that. I'm very much about open conversations. Everybody has a voice, and that comes back from what I think I said of my childhood. Everybody has a voice, and when they're heard, you can actually then work out whether or not you're going in the same way. I also, I'm a CEO's role is to lead the entirety, not just one person, or not. Also, another lesson I often talk to people about is get your ego out of your business,
Yep.
because you're not your business. You might want to, be seen as that great success, or you might want to be, with the title, etc. But the responsibility you have, and who's accountable and who has authority in your business, is your totally your role, and what you need to do to take people forward. If you take the whole lot forward, the intention is to take everybody forward, not singling out, those that you might particularly like, etc. Play to strengths, without a doubt. Play to strengths, and invest in people to upskill that strength.
Yeah, I think that's all awesome. And talking about skills, strength, and it's a family. Can you talk about how you were able to keep the family afloat during COVID? I know Australia, most of my people in America, just kind of COVID, if you guys don't know, in Australia is a lot less worse. They're a little bit more open than we are in America. But during the height of it and continuing right now, how have you been able to keep that family afloat and keep the business running with all that's been happening?
Absolutely. Look, I think for us, like, in 28 years, I've seen environmental, external environmental factors in my business life and in this brand's life that I've had to deal with. And one of those is that we actually nearly lost a business in 2012. And I say in jest, and, I can say it now, I say hook, line, sinker, the dog, the cat, the soccer ball, the football, the everything, the grass. And it was a scary, scary, scary time, where I had to come back down to my lifestyle changed. But in that, we decided that nobody would lose their job. And again, it came back to open conversation. So I think communication is such a massive key. So in COVID, we're a food plant. So we're globally accredited. So we're very high standards of what we do and how we operate. So we have discipline and structure in our business to ensure the food safety of our product and the reputation of our brand is maintained. But when COVID came along, we had to step up just that extra bit as well. So I think the biggest part, besides the systems we put in, additional hand washing, sanitizing, additional things like that, which happened across the businesses, every point that potentially we all took for granted in our workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, like I said, we're food safe and we do, very strict routines of that. But the communication was, it was my responsibility to talk to everybody in the team in an open conversation that this is what, for us to survive, that our whole outcome was to keep our plant, our factory operating. And we were able to do that during COVID. As a food manufacturer, we became one of those, we had to continue to supply. So if we knew if COVID got into the factory, then of course we'd be on a minimum 14-day shutdown, just compulsory. And with that being said, so we just made sure we talked to people. Who are you mingling with? How are you managing your safety? How are you looking after the guy next to us? We talked about family values. This is your family team. We don't want to lose anybody here. If we have to shut down the factory and your mortgage can't be paid and your mortgage can't be paid. So we came together as a collaborative and kept the open communications. Where we knew team members had second jobs potentially, or were Uber drivers, etc., as the additional income, we just asked them in conversation to consider how they're managing that. Are they using hand sanitizer? Are they wearing masks, etc.? And of course, in the early part of COVID, none of us knew what we didn't know.
Yeah,
I think that's such a lesson in business. You don't know what you don't know, and that's one of the takeouts. Be open to listening to, because whoever you're put in front of, Faith, whoever you're listening to, if you're listening to me today, I've got a message for somebody out there. My entire message may not be valuable to somebody. Just one thing I said will prompt somebody just to take action, the next step to improve their life, their community's life, and the trickle effect is amazing.
Yep, and that's what I always tell people as well, is if I can change one person's life using this podcast and you coming on does that for someone, then I'm successful, and that's all that matters. So, Karen, I think you've given a lot of good information. We can wrap it up and go around third base. Two kind of final questions for you. I'll start the first one. If you could go back to yourself in 28 years and someone who's looking to start a business, get into business, what would you tell yourself back then that you wish you would have known?
I actually would have said, I think everybody's looking for, that wonderful work-life balance. I hear it so often. Everybody thinks going into your own business potentially is going to offer that to you. And in some ways, it offers you freedom and it offers you choices. How you get that work-life balance is certainly part of your time management system, and block out your time to yourself. As a mum as well, I had 2 children brought up through the business, and now adult children, and one has stayed helping in the business as one has gone completely the opposite way, is actually, lock out that time and keep the business talk away from the home talk. And that's a very, very, very difficult thing to do, because people come and talk about what they do in their passion.
Yep.
And when your passion becomes your business, becomes back into your home, it's an incredibly difficult road to take. So try and find that time. Be true to yourself in that. And it's not selfish. It is not selfish. It's healthy to actually allocate time to yourself, because you become a better you to give back to them.
And I love that. And I tell people on my team as well, take work-life balance. The Super Bowl, as we just talked about, was a couple days ago. I know there's a bunch of people on my team are like, Super Bowl. I asked them to take Monday off. It's not worth you being hungover or tired. I'm the exponential value of them working harder the rest of the week. Take it. I really preach work-life balance. So I love that. And then the second question, which is going to be more thought-provoking, deep. As a woman CEO, what do you feel that you've had to overcome? That maybe someone who's a man in your role wouldn't have, or is the fact that you and your husband are kind of running it together, maybe you haven't encountered that, but you've seen people on your level deal with the same type of thing?
I've definitely had to overcome things in a female CEO environment, and whilst I think part of what you mentioned before, everybody loves a success story and wants to be on a success journey. When you're a female successful CEO, it comes with, it's a very it can be an attractive thing as well, and so sometimes you attract people that you don't want to necessarily attract, that you actually have to go and then and actions that you don't actually want to encourage. And I've walked into a corporate environment, into business meetings where I've been treated, two things. I've been treated, one, as actions, handshakes, etc., have indicated something that took me in a totally disrespectful way. And I had to just come above all of that. And it still stays in my mind, the action that person gave me and greeted me with when I went into their environment. I just decided that over time is that I am equally as valuable as them, and I wasn't prepared to be put down like that. The other thing that I've had to overcome is that I go into a business, into a meeting, and people don't know necessarily that I'm CEO, and especially with my husband, right? They're assuming I'm the woman doing the accounts, or I'm the, girl in the background, just come here as the support, where I'm actually the decision maker. Ultimately, whilst we're both decision makers, my role is a CEO, and being seen as, the wife of the man as opposed to the CEO of the business. And I've learnt to value myself and my skill set and find confidence by surrounding myself with like women who actually can support and grow me through those circumstances. Because your ego, yourself, can take a battering through all of that. But you are valuable for what you bring to the table, not who you are coming to the table. You are valuable for what you bring to the table. And it's okay to say to those around the table, this is the role I represent. And I actually have a very strong belief these days that if you're sitting around a table, whether it be board, corporate meeting, etc., you need, I don't care what gender you take, or no gender at all, you're there for a reason. I want your valuable input as a person sitting around this table, not as a woman or whatever that is.
Awesome. I love that. So let me just recap that, because that was very, very powerful. I think that kind of recaps the whole thing, that what you just said there is, when you have the belief in yourself and you have the self-talent, you need to go make it happen. It may not happen in the moment. It may not happen like 5 minutes from now, but when you give yourself the time, the work, and good things will happen. Is when you surround yourself with people who will complement you where your weaknesses are, better things will happen. So you're going to need to figure out what are your strengths, but more importantly, what are your weaknesses? And so when you have those weaknesses and you bring people on, it will only enhance your strengths, and the overall company, business, idea, what you're trying to do will become much more concrete, better, successful. Turn that revenue from $1 million to $5 million, $20 million, because now you're building a business, you're building the right team. And what Karen has done her whole life is built a team around her, starting in 1993 with this company, Kurrajong Kitchen. And now here we are, 28 years later. She's been able to survive a pandemic. 2012, survive something else that was happening that was put them out. And she's successful businesswoman, CEO of a company, her and her husband leading this together. And as she just said, she will go into boardroom meetings and people won't know that she's the CEO. And she's like, excuse me, you should be looking at me, not him. I'm the decision maker here. And it's something that unfortunately women have to deal with, but she has the right mindset to overcome that, knowing that it goes back to she has the confidence in herself and she brings the skill set that is to be the boss woman out there. Is that good?
That's brilliant, Randy. Absolutely. I think self-reflection's the key. Absolutely. Self-reflection at all points.
Good. Is there anything else that you would like to touch on we haven't talked about today before we go?
No, just that, I suppose from my perspective, these days, as CEO and co-founder of Kurrajong Kitchen, these days what I do is go out and mentor businesses and take this story to the speaking market. So thank you for the opportunity again, for giving me the opportunity to I hope inspire somebody to take the next step, whether it be in corporate life, whether it be in personal life, business life, but just take the next step to be a better you, which makes a better community.
Awesome. And if people want to look up Kurrajong Kitchen, if they want to look up you, how can we find you?
Thank you. So for me, it's Karen Lebsanft KarenLebsanft.com, and for Kurrajong Kitchen, Kurrajong, which is Kurrajong. Oh, it's right behind me. Kurrajong. For those on the YouTube, Kurrajong, Kurrajong, kitchen.com.au, and you'll hear more story. But reach out to me if you want to feel a little bit more inspired.
Yep. And if you're watching on YouTube, go in the bio, go in the comments. We'll be right there. If you're on Apple, Spotify, whatever, go ahead and click the link inside the description. Karen, thank you so much for coming on today. Again, my name is Randy Silver. This is the Leap of Faith podcast. If you're out there listening, however you are, however you're watching, thank you so much. Karen has taught us so much this week about self-belief, being a go-getter, overcoming adversity, surrounding yourself with the right people to enhance your skills and people that will grow with you, and don't let the haters hate, persevere and overcome.
Thanks, Randy. It's been
my pleasure. So Karen, are you ready to do the sign off with me?
Yeah, what are we doing?
Awesome. So repeat after me. Stay healthy.
Stay healthy.
Stay wealthy.
Stay wealthy.
And have a good week, fans.
And have a good week, fans.
Deuces.
Deuces.
Bye.
Cheers.